Just waiting for this recording to start. Yeah. All right. So good morning again. Our speaker today is Mrinali Balki, who is an assistant professor at Ansal University at Sushant School of Art and Architecture. She has a bachelor's from Nagpur University, a master's from Mumbai University in urban design. And her topic, she's an early research scholar with us at SSA. And her topic today is really working through biases, and which I thought was very interesting. And so, without much ado, Runali, I'll hand it over to you. And welcome everyone to all those from SSA and also outside AU. So, yeah, we can start. Thanks, Runali.
Thank you, Radha. So, good morning, everyone. I will share my screen. Just let me know when it's visible.
Yeah, and I'll just request everyone else to have their mics switched off, please. Thank you.
Is it visible?
Not yet, but
Yeah. Should I start?
it has it. Are you? Yeah, it's presenting now. All right. Yeah, please. Thanks.
All right. Good morning, one and all. Good to be a part of proposition here. So my topic is basically working with biases in research, perspective of an early research scholar. As Radha has already told you that I am into the early stages of my PhD. So basically, I'm trying to put forward my idea that how biases is helping me to strengthen my topic or the research further. So it's not necessarily a general kind of understanding that what we have, which I obviously know that most of you are aware about it, that what are the biases in research process, but this is something which I am putting it forward through my research topic. So yeah, bias is if you see bias as a term, you can actually relate it to number of aspects. For instance, I have just put forward here some of the one of the image which talks about bias psychology, bias cognitive, bias tendency, bias information, bias confirmation. So many things could be related to it. So not necessarily bias as a term is related in research, but in general, uh, in our life, basically in our daily life too. So technical definition, bias prejudice means strong inclination of the mind or a preconceived opinion about something or someone. Inclination or prejudice for or against one person or group, especially in a way considered to be unfair. So what we generally look at bias is something which is very negative and which shouldn't be prevalent in any case. So what I'm proposing here is an idea where I am understanding bias as a perspective. So whereas it is looked at mostly in a way that it's a cognitive processing error, but what I am trying to make all of us come on a similar page where I'm trying to understand it as a perspective of filter for information, model mechanism, and preconception, which is very obvious. But these are the two things model mechanism, filter for information, which I am trying to understand through my research process. So here comes my journey of research where bias has been a catalyst rather than an error as it's generally seen, which is strengthening and reinforcing the idea to be presented. So, as any researcher starts with, I also started with. Before I start, I would like to mention one thing. So, all this journey, all through, I would obviously, one needs to have some people to make you realize that these are the biases, and then only it kind of becomes that is when I realized that this is my strength. This is becoming my strength. At least in initial stages of my research, I would give the credit to my guide and co-guide. My guide is Dr. Vibhuti Sachdev and co-guide Dr. Ajit. I don't want to mention it on every stage, but they were the prime like key. What do you say, K force to push me through this process. But I have kind of compiled it to make it understand in a better way. Yeah, as any other researcher, I started with what is the broader area of my research. And again, because I belong to, I did my master's in urban design, so urban design. Then because it was in India, very much influenced by the Indian context. So Indian context, learned a lot of theories and delivered some of them. So related to theories and because the school always wanted it to be something, the solutions which were more of practical implication or application based. So these were the larger keywords that I started with. Uh, and the journey of bias started here, and the social pressure. It's something which is sounding like a great topic, an interesting topic. So, back of the mind, these two terms sort of stayed in my mind. And here comes the first bias, which is expectancy bias. The researcher expectations which affects the outcome of the study. So eventually, yes, it got neutralized because you get so indulged into your topic that these two terms kind of gets nullified. It's more to you than to others. So, so my guide always keeps on saying that Nunali came up with the topic. So yeah, exactly that was the thing, and I'll kind of tell you how it got tweaked and how it did not rather make sense to me, or rather start made making sense to me eventually. So the topic started with application of urban theories as a pragmatic approach towards understanding of intensity form. So the questions, so who divides this urban and rural? So of course there is a lot of research that had happened behind this, but I am telling you the key parameters which kind of hitted me hard, and that's when I kind of changed it or kind of tweaked it. So who divides this urban and rural, and can only urban, so these are the parameters of urban design. And sorry, and only considering urban form will it give a complete understanding. And again, what understanding was the question? So understanding what of Indian context? So again, why urban? Why not only theories? Then will this give you a complete understanding? And again, what understanding? So and then there was a parallel thing going which kind of said that what is theory, and that was a different angle that I was working on parallelly. And what understanding am I getting out of this kind of study or research? That this was another branch which I was working on. So step 2, I kind of understood what they said, but because I had my own sort of biases, I what I did was I just added this term, which is urban design theories, because obviously very much inclined towards the specialization that I did. So I thought I'll make it more specific and yet having more scope. So rest all remains same. So if you look at the same diagram, I just kind of zoomed this out, making it more specific or having it more, or giving it more scope. But the question again, the rest of the things remained. And then the question came, is urban design, or what is urban design fundamentally? So this was again another branch that I started hunting for. And are urban design theories different? So this was another question that again popped in. So, and then what is intensity? I was talking about intensity form, and then the question was, what is intensity fundamentally? So this is where, so in these two steps, I realized that there was a my side bias. This is the research. This was the article in the Research Digest. which is also called a self-serving bias, makes it difficult for us to see the logic in arguments we disagree with. So here I would just like to put up a video.
The self-serving
So
bias describes the tendency of people to attribute success to themselves and failure to outside factors. In other words, if it worked, it's because of me. If it didn't, it's because of someone or something else. It's a common type of cognitive bias that has been studied extensively in social psychology. For example, if a person passes her driving test on the first try, she says that it was because she studied hard and she is a good driver. But if she fails, she blames the examiner, the car, the weather, or anything but her bad driving skills. Studies show that the self serving bias happens in many different situations of our daily lives at school, at the workplace, in relationships, sports, and even when we decide what to shop. Researchers think that it helps protect our self esteem and reduces hurtful emotions we can't control. Self control, culture, and emotion all play a role, and we even use it to protect others when we say, "It wasn't your fault, there's nothing you could have done." It sounds innocent, but the self serving bias can have a great impact on our life because we don't learn from our mistakes and that we can do something for years without getting better at it. If the driving student admits that she failed because she didn't practice enough, she could ask people for help, study harder, and pass the test on the second try. After all, you can only influence your own actions and not those of others or your environment. So, here are some tips that can help you avoid the pitfalls of self serving bias. Get started by observing yourself and notice when you're doing it. Then ask yourself, why are you doing it? And does it help you move forward? Try to imagine how your future looks if you use the self serving bias a lot, and what happens if you accept your failures or look at things that help you succeed. Try not to think about the causes of problems too much without moving forward and trying to solve them. When we dwell on the past, our mind looks for excuses, which starts the self serving bias. Recognize when something is your own fault and learn to forgive yourself. Everybody makes mistakes, but only the people who understand when they did something wrong can learn and grow. This social innovation video was sponsored.
yeah, so just wanted to share this short video with you. So now we can. So all this happened with me, and then I kind of understood, or I was made. I was. I understood that what were the basic faults, and again with this biases, again the third step came in, and I thought that the problem is there should not be any subtitle, and let's have a complete kind of title which gives a clear understanding, because when you have a bigger title and then the subtitle, it kind of gets confused. So I started with, again, study of urban design theories towards understanding of existing Indian city form. Now what I'm trying to do here, if you look at it carefully, was I, rather than, I took a step back of applicability and said that let's study first. Okay. And again, urban design self motivation still remained, and I thought putting up existing will negate the past. But whereas, so this is called as confirmation cognitive bias, where meanwhile when I was pulling up the string of what is theory and looking, reading, going through the research, I realized that it is something which predicts, delights, and explains. So eventually I thought that it is a part and parcel of most of it what I'm doing. So even if I'm studying Indian city form, this understanding theories would be the basics of it, or basics of research for that matter. So these are the common causes of cognitive bias. I was trapped into all of them, but this was the major one. So using mental shortcuts. So I go into a larger or a great, what do you say, at length process. Let's have a shortcut. So that is the reason. if you see, this is what happened. I rather than from applicability, because there were two strings, applicability and study. So I kind of pushed this back and went to study. So yeah, cognitive bias, which is mental shortcut called heuristic. Then when I was studying what is urban theories, I sort of realized that there is no fundamental boundary between urban design theories and urban planning theories. So they are all merged together, and not really you can segregate them from for a particular discipline. So this was again urban design theory was negated. Then came the stage four. So study of theories towards, so urban design was eliminated and theory still remained. So study of theories towards understanding of forms of Indian built environment. Now because rural and urban was controversial, it came to built environment. And so uh, so I thought forms of Indian built environment will give me a larger scope of research. And as I mentioned, that theory is ingrained part of the research process. So that was it. And then here came the confirmation bias, where what I'm trying to do is interpreting information to support my existing belief. So I sort of understood what I was going through, but once I did that, not initially. So this was, so another aspects of confirmation bias was, this was the dominating thing that I could now foresee, that interpreting information to support my existing belief, and then only remembering details that uphold your belief, then ignoring information that challenges your belief, and not seeking out objective facts, which is a generic kind of term for bias. As I said, it's a people look at it as a cognitive error, systematic error. So yeah, then came the stage five. So what happened is, while doing all this, it kind of reminded me of again going back to what I wanted to do fundamentally. And though I was running in the same playground of what my keywords were, touching each of them at different point in time, but not really knowing that where to touch upon exactly was a big problem. So I kind of got zoomed into what exactly I wanted to understand, and this is what I thought then was because when I again looked at my board of keywords, mood board, then I kind of understood that applicability was one thing that I was looking forward, and that is not reflected in my research as of yet. So study of built environment in Indian context to guide the future development. So again, yes, it was. I got an idea of where would be my research more relevant, and this was the area which I wanted to target. So again, reminds one of what we wanted to do, and then so again flipping some terms, rearranging some terms, and then so basically what bias did was gave strengthened my topic even more better. Of course, one needs to have someone to make you realize that these are the biases that are being faced by you in your particular research. So yeah, and then still I will say, so this is so my topic per se is under stage 5 right now, yet there is another branch which is still I am exploring, which is what kind of future development is it, the kind of future development I'm looking at, is it the way the future development happens, or am I looking at the plugins, my research as a plugin towards the future development. So all these are still unanswered, and I'm trying to figure out through further research. So yeah, this is the current topic, study of built environment in Indian context to guide the future development. So what happened was, the broader area of my research still remained the same, but what it just did was, sorry, it kind of highlighted some of the facts, detailed out some of them, like rather than calling it as urban design, it became built environment, and Indian context, yeah. So theories learned, theories taught, urban theories became very much a ingrained part of it, and then application based and practical implementation. These three were the highlighting points and focused areas, probably in the broad area that I was talking about. So, what I want to put forward here is what type of bias are still prevalent. So, considering my topic per se, I am trying to put forward sort of questions which says that what type of biases are still prevalent in the topic, what you all can see and probably I can't, and what could be the possible avenues to negate them in specific, and what are further biases faced by researchers which should be known in advance. Of course, everybody knows that bias, so it's called unconscious bias. So everybody knows that there shouldn't be bias, but yes, there are. And I think in early stage of, now that I look at it backward, so I think that having biases at initial stage of research is good, probably because it gives you more. So this is what is again another set of questions which I am still thinking, that is bias an inherent part of research process, which was yes in my part. Then having bias could be seen as a systematic error or systematic error exclusion strategy, or so how can we see look at bias in early research process, and is bias a starting point for any research to happen? Because what happens is whenever you think of any topic or any kind of idea, not necessarily is bias free. So so it might start off with a bias, which I think it's fine, because further when you go into research you kind of delineate it and you kind of understand what are the nuances of it. Then does it depend on individual perspective? Is bias subjective than being objective term? And so again, one statement, probably bias leads to further inquiry. So we had this discussion in our PhD classes as well, and then here was one idea that popped in. I'm looking forward to have more ideas from you all regarding. So one possible way to identify, because there was someone to always show me that this is the bias that you're facing, this is the bias you're facing. So it was easier for me to identify. But what if you are going through the process and there is, you need to someone to reinforce the idea again and again? So one needs to have some kind of tool. So this was the tool suggested by my guide, intuition pumps, and so tools of thinking basically. So there are 12 tools of thinking. I would only show the example of one or two. For example, in my topic for specifically, the term urban, which was always questioned. So if you look at the definition, one says that it's an entity, okay, and one says that urban is looking at the entity. So it's so attached terms like urban development, urban decay. So DPT is one of the thinking tools, which is a proposition that seems both important and true and profound, but that achieves this effect by being ambiguous. So the definition of urban being ambiguous. So most of easiest way to explain what urban is, people keep on saying that how urban and rural are different. So this is the easiest way to explain the term. Then again, different terms and conditions are laid to call it urban, as the meaning in itself is very ambiguous. So for example, population limit, territorial restrictions, so on and so forth. So this is one of the tool. Second is rhetorical questions. So asking yourself the questions again and again. So, for example, this was one of the questions that I started with. Can Western theories be applied in Indian context? So, obvious answer, yes. But if one tries to genuinely answer the question, then one might say that why not? And as the question is beyond obvious, which leads to further question and query. Then, so all these questions came up, like why is question about Western theory only? Why not Indian theories? Then do theories differ? Then why this relation is established in the first place? Isn't in context established and different? Then so questions relating to why, what, and how. So, but and the third one, so this is the last example that I am showing is using lay audience as decoys. So, for instance, I am explaining, so using an audience that does not have any special knowledge of the same issue under discussion as a tool. Uh, so, for example, if I'm explaining my topic to management professionals, so I have to probably keep the oration to the point so as to maintain the interest of the audience. A, then one needs to use very common vocabulary rather than field oriented vocabulary, making one understand every part of the topic to its simplest and understandable version. So, for example, what is planning? Which are Western and Indian theories? Why is it relevant for them to understand the topic? So on and so forth. So these were the three. So there are many. So there are 12 in number. I'm just highlighting three of you. You can go into detail if you want. But yes, these thinking tools really helped me to further reinforce, and I won't say the journey has ended, but still continued as a part of larger part of my research. Yeah, that's all. So this is what I wanted to put forward as an idea.
Okay. Thank you, Mrinali. Um,
I
So
stop
as you
presenting.
know, as I mean, I'm just reiterating some of the points. That's for proposition. We have, we only encourage work that is in progress, and the idea is for the speaker and the researcher to actually get feedback on ongoing research and to help them along the way. So I'll throw open the floor, as it were, for questions. You can also type questions in the chat box. I'm going to monitor that. Um, Anyone who has a question or suggestion or clarification? Uh, Mrinali, would you like to put on a different slide? Maybe that lovely graphic you made at the beginning as a background. Yeah, yeah, thanks. Or yeah, yeah, and maybe you could keep your presentation on because people might want to refer to some slides. Yeah, thank you. No one?
Yeah, hi.
Kapiyush.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting to see, and also, I mean, another thing that biases also that we may face in the due course of research is that the references, the materials that we will be investigating, that we will be studying, what were the biases that the authors or those researchers had something that they have, the reference we are getting, the biases that it gives, you need to look at that as well. I'm sure Runali, you're aware of it, but I'm just sharing what I found about many readings that I've been reading, and I could sense that okay, this is biased because it was written in early 20th century, and then kind of content that were being focused and all those things. Yeah, I
Yeah.
just wanted
So
to, yeah.
yeah, I did come across this Piyush. Just did wanted to clutter it a bit. So some of the references that I kind of read through did have a hidden bias, which you do not clearly see it. But yes, when you go through it completely, you towards the end you do understand that what exactly the author is trying to have a biased kind of opinion about.
Yes, yes.
Can I wanted to ask,
Yeah, please,
uh,
Sachin. Go ahead.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it's a very fundamental topic. I mean, that's the one of the basis of the research culture that we have. Uh, um I think if one could look at also the different historical cultural context of because this question is based in the assumptions about nature of reality. So in the positivist worldview that there is an objective reality, that's the fundamental assumption independent of the person observing it. But if we look at different other philosophical traditions like phenomenology and hermeneutics, they have a different approach of looking at the nature of reality. So if these are also included, like in which worldview is your think position? I think it is mostly in positivist as far as what I saw. But there are other worldviews also about in Eastern worldview about nature of reality. What is that? So if one just knows the all the spectrum of the different worldviews.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're right on that. Currently, I'm just looking at it. Not sure what is happening is looking at different kind of material. Yet when you zoom out, again there is some hidden bias which is sitting on my head, and then I'm trying to negate it, and then trying to neutralize it still. So once you kind of figure it out that this is the bias that you're facing, then you overcome it. So probably, yeah, again one more step six is yet to come.
Thanks, Sachin. We have a question from Himani. Hi, Himani. She asked, what methods will you use to identify bias from a researcher's perspective? Uh, and then also, will there be an exploration of researcher versus respondent bias? Um, yeah, so I think it's getting into the nuances of, you know,
So
how do you
if you're
identify
talking
your bias from your perspective, really? Yeah.
So yeah, as I mentioned that thinking tools was one of the ideas wherein a researcher can find out his own. But that's one thing, that the basket of 12 thinking tools remains with you, and you again go back and look at your topic, and then again kind of. So this is one of the ways to look at it. But yet again, the question is still in the portal, where I'm saying that what are the other ways that one can negate the bias? Yes, research, reading, yeah, but what specific? Because as a researcher, you keep on reading, and then you get influenced by some of the materials you get. So you kind of take that idea in picture, and then complete thing that you're thinking in the first place gets negated. So yeah, one of the tools, as I've mentioned, is using thinking tools and going back and forth again and again. And rest, I'm waiting for suggestions to happen on that.
Um, can I ask a question?
Sanya, yes, please. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, Mrinali, this is like not really. I mean, of course, it's not a suggestion. It's more a
Mm-hmm.
query because like obviously, it is very interesting to see you working and talking about city forms because
Mm-hmm.
again, that is some idea that I have like just begun with. So,
Mm-hmm.
like my query is that how has bias kind of helped you to like because you are talking about city forms in the Indian context or built environment in the Indian context. So how you think
Yeah.
your study of biases has kind of helped you in that journey? Like why study Indian context only? Why not study another context? Or like how do you really geographically and temporally situate yourself to study a particular case, and how far does bias helps in understanding or helps a researcher in reaching to that point?
So as I said, Indian context was always in my mind because I have studied in India, and I have worked on that. So that was, so again, self motivation, which was one of the biases in itself. That it comes from which background you are from, and then you don't talk about it, you don't think about it twice. It's like it's given that you will take Indian context. So for a researcher, so that is one bias which is called a self motivation or conscious bias, as I mentioned in one of my slides, that it's part of conscious bias, and very much a part of cognitive bias as well. So all these biases, I think, are very ingrained in one's in an individual, for that matter, and then how it projects it out. It only, so for example, when you spelled it out loud, it struck me that why am I looking at Indian context? But yes, there is a reason to it. So I also had some readings on that, which I won't go into detail, but it kind of justifies the fact that this Indian context has more layering and more complex systems involved in it, which kind of led me to zoom into Indian context per se.
Oh, thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think there's also a question from Amrita, and she says, "Thank you, Mrinali. Your take on bias to make it a more positive contributor in your research is interesting." And her question is, "How do you think it influences or prevents you from freely going ahead?" So, uh, yeah,
Come again? Influence. Sorry, I can't see the screen, so can't read it again.
yeah, sure. It says, "How do you think it
Uh-huh.
as in your bias prevents
Mhm.
you from freely going ahead?"
Prevents you from freely going ahead.
Uh-huh.
Can you just detail a bit
She said,
more?
"Your take on bias is to make it a more positive contributor to
Yeah, yeah.
research, right? That's what you're saying."
Mm-hmm.
And she
Mm-hmm.
says, so she's asking, I guess, the other side, like, how do you think it influences you, which is, or prevents you from going ahead? Let's say if you wanted to go ahead without biases, what would that uh,
So,
difference be? Or
again, I think what I think right now is because it's a early research process that I am going through. Probably biases is becoming one key push factor for me to go ahead and explore more ideas, because I realized later that I was too confined in my own cocoon where when I was a little reluctant to get out of it. So bias kind of, as she said, that it's on a positive note, so it kind of helped me to free up myself. But yes, that the when I read on the two biased and unbiased sides of a particular thing, I kind of when I read about it, so it kind of still gives me a line to work on, because somewhere at the back of the mind, of course, the guides are there to, pat you up and say that, is this what you want to do, and that question hits you back again, and then again you go back and see that yes, there was a bias, yes, you have studied these many things, and but what exactly are you trying to figure out? That niche needs a little more time to figure out. And still, so as I said, still wondering where exactly that string could be pulled off. So half of it is probably streamlined, but the other half is making the first part little fumbled. So maybe reading and reading more is the only key to remove or freely prevent going it freely further. Does that answer the question?
we'll wait. Amrita, if you have a follow up, happy to take it. Meanwhile, just Ekta has a question. Ekta, are you here? Um,
Yep. Hi.
yeah,
Good
yeah.
morning.
Hi, hi.
I'm Renali. Really
Hi.
interesting to go through your presentation. So, silly question. I'm sure my kids will say, "Don't you know, mom?" But is bias a synonym of subjectivity, and alternatively unbiased of objectivity? Or where in the subset, which reigns higher in the hierarchy, subjectivity and then bias? I mean, I'm trying to, yeah.
So while I was making this presentation, of course, yes, looking to what exactly bias was, and went through an article which says that a little systematic diversion from the truth is bias, and doesn't really have a synonym with subjectivity. But this is again my interpretation. So it technically said that a deviation from truth, which has a very strong inclination by the researcher, is bias, and the other aspect of is falsification, where you if one goes on the other side of the chart, then it is kind of falsification, where you're trying to prove your point devoid of the truth. And So bias does have some facts in place, whereas subjectivity, yes. I think bias in itself is a journey where subjectivity is a part of it too, and it kind of gets negates when you string it little further onto the process. So yeah, come to think of it, synonym. So I was looking at synonyms, and none of them actually reflected what the exact meaning of bias is. So yeah, deviation from truth. Then there was another string which said falsification. Then there was other thing which said. So again, there are similar words but not same words. So yeah, synonym again. So no exact. I don't think there is a exact term for biases, because it has that duality in itself, and that addressing both of them parallelly is where the challenge lies, and thus I'm looking at it as more of a positive term right now.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pranali. I
Yeah,
think, yeah,
yeah,
Aruna,
yeah, yeah.
go ahead.
Because of course, we are also, I'm also part of the journey in this whole fight with bias. The only thing is, when like biases definition talks about deviation from the truth, and like we know that truth, there are many truths, and as a researcher, when we start exploring, there are these bigger contexts, and there are these different truths. So I'm actually asking a very simple practical question. Does the um journey of in research, when one is um, identifying one's biases, do you think, because is there an end to it, or and Runali, I want to ask you, because you have been on this journey very very rigorously, and or do you at for the for do you find that now that you have reached a certain point, uh, you have been able to identify the bias, and you have identified the truth, that is that on basis of which you have removed your biases?
So Aruna, as as the researcher, you kind of question. One tends to have questions for everything, and then the question again started with what truth is, and then the so as I mentioned, the term urban, for example. So it is loaded with biases, because and it doesn't have a true kind of definition which I could hinder upon. There were research papers which also said that one cannot actually define urban design or urban in just one word, or it's not a definition per se that one can give. So it's more of an explanation that people are putting it forward, and not a definition. So truth similarly is one subjective sort of term, which again one needs to decipher whether this is truth or fact, or it's something which you observe. So validating that is another string that one needs to look at it. But yeah, dealing with truth is little, so one needs a clear eye, which I think is a process of a researcher, which he develops eventually, to look at things in a very unbiased way, and then zoom down to one particular aspect of what exactly one wants, and what exactly would fit into the basket of what unbiased research is. So still into that journey. So maybe people who have gone through the journey would be right people to answer this question more precisely.
No, no, thanks. But I think there's a lot of learning one gets from your sharing of your journey, and there are many clues that one can identify, and it's really helpful. for the personal for the research that one is pursuing. So I think this is very great. It's a very good presentation. Thanks, Pranali.
Thank you, Arun.
And lot of appreciation coming in from in the comment section also. There's Sanya, Piyush, who've all said engaging, and but Parul also has a question. Parul Munjal, uh,
Yeah.
how do you position, or how does one position bias versus conditioning? Is there a difference? I guess is the question.
So yeah, as so I know this question, and um, so always difficult to answer her questions, but yeah, conditioning, yes, very much. As Sanaya, I think also um, very well kind of identified that why only Indian context. So of course this is one conditioning that happens, and biases, does I say that bias is one positive what do you say, a hammer that hits you hard, but kind of brings you to uh, a subject line where you do not, to an extent, I won't say completely, but to an extent come out of that. So that was coming out of conditioning is something like, which you are being trained for, which you are being, so again I would like to share this example. There is often a comment that because I am from urban design background, I come with a baggage of words, which actually doesn't probably make sense to others, but that is an ingrained part of me, that is an ingrained vocabulary that I possess. So unknowingly, unconsciously I do that, but yeah, it is more of conditioning that kind of sort of probably takes in bias as one of the self bias or my side bias into the process of my research. Yeah, so conditioning is one major factor which is very difficult to come out of, and at the same time it kind of pushes the biases, pushes the biases in the topic, but at the same time biases also kind of negates this conditioning if one strives hard. Yeah,
Right. We
Parul.
do have a follow up from Amrita actually.
Yeah.
And she says her original question was about how do you think the bias influences or prevents you from freely going ahead, and then she
Okay.
says, I ask mainly from the perspective of making decisions or charting your own path in your research. How will the future interpretations of your bias hold you from taking those positions? So bias also as an evolving process, I think, you
So
overcome someone and then you probably, I guess that's where it's going.
yeah, I changed my this thing because want to read the question. Sorry, I can't see the question. All right. So, sorry, can you tell me where the question is so that I can look at it more precisely? No, I can't see it right now. Sorry, Radha. The question was too long to understand it. Can you just type it again? So how will I take that forward? Was that a question? Hello? Hello?
Sorry, how will the future interpretations of your bias hold you from taking those positions? Sorry.
Uh, honestly, Amrita, not very aware about what future will take me into as looking at bias as a one key factor. Uh, so this was a journey till date. What I understand, what bias is and how bias is helping me do all this. So not really able to answer your question very specifically. So I really don't know what future will throw me into with respect to this biases, but yes, looking at the journey till date, it has been a positive sign for me.
Right, fair enough. And I'm sure there'll be other things in the research which will also emerge. I think perhaps just the last two questions. So Himanshu has asked, so you talked about conscious decisions. Mrinali, these questions are at the bottom of the chat if you'd like to also read them, but I'll read it
Yeah.
out because we're also
Yeah.
recording. You talked about conscious decisions, which I think lead to well-informed choices. Oftentimes, this then turns into biases because an individual is well-informed and knowledgeable to take control. And so, this is a suggestion from his side, I guess, not a question. I think it will be good to
Yeah.
look at this aspect. Tapasya also has a comment or a question. It is
Mhm.
emerging from the discussion that we can never be devoid of biases, even while critically analyzing our bias about any particular bias in our research. One wonders if there is a bias about investigating the bias or a valid reason of charting all the biases while pursuing research. So, is there a bias about the fact that you're picking bias as a something to talk about?
Not really. So this kind of reminds me of one instance where so what happens is when you're thinking about one particular aspect in research and then you keep on hunting for something which supports your argument, and that is a bias in itself. Yes, agreed. But that's where there are some other supporters, thanks to your guide and co-guide. They are the ones who kind of tells you that you are looking at something which you want to look at, but there is another viewpoint to it. Let's have a look at it. And that's when, despite of you not agreeing with the fact that no, it's like you're very stubborn on to that fact that you are right, and then getting out of it and then understanding what one has to say actually with different perspectives. So yeah, she's right on that one looks at a particular evidences to support what the argument is, but one probably needs somebody to kind of hit you hard and say that this is not what one wants, and this is kind of giving your judgment towards the topic or towards the subject. So yeah, so of course, putting it forward now, it appears to be very simple that how that bias has helped me, but largely I was when I was sitting together and looked at the complete kind of research process till date, I realized that this was one key factor which kind of pushed me to reach here. Thank you, Tapasya.
I'm wondering if the guides want to have a last question or the last not the last word, but at least some questions. Uh, oh, you've done this.
I don't know how fair the hard hitter should be hitting again, but
No, it's
I don't
okay,
know if
ma'am.
Ajit is here. But no, it has been a wonderful journey. I think as Sachin also said that it's also to do with reality or the study of reality that also evolves, so your biases evolve. But I think the journey was also it was difficult to shake it off Mrinali, because she, as Parul said, we are conditioned so hard, and especially in urban design, urban theories, that it is difficult to shake off something that has been you have internalized for your entire adulthood. So I think as a PhD, I take this journey, of, and I think that is a common trajectory of all the journeys I've seen, and I have also personally gone through. That you enter into research with full confidence and surety, and then and thankfully the facts hit you hard, and you go into stillness, and or from a stage of being very argumentative, as Suruchi would say, that Suruchi Shah said that my entire family knows I'm doing a PhD because I'm always arguing with them. And you tend to do that because you can see the biases in everything, you see the prejudices very clearly, You see the loopholes in arguments very clearly. You see the problems. Everything is problematic. So from that position, you go into a stillness where then you think, what am I to say? And that is a very special place to be. And this kind of stillness which allows you to hear the pebble on still water through the ripples. It doesn't make a sound, but you can hear it, and you're only seeing it. And for that stillness to happen, you have to go through all the hard-hitting stuff. And I think that the purpose of theory that Pranali defined as something that predicts, delights, and explains. And in the Indian context, I think we are biased. Everything has bias, of course. The fact that you're a human being, you have to survive is a bias. But to be aware and taking decisions in an aware fashion is the difference. To acknowledge that this is the bias. So I've got quickly three things to say. One is this definition of what a theory is, that it predicts, delights, and explains. And I think in the Indian context, we have been heavily biased towards delights, which we don't even explain, and we don't even think they are used to predict. Sometimes we use them to predict, but delighting is the first condition of a theory. So the purpose of theory is could be different in different cultural contexts. My second problem with theory is that question, really not a problem, is that if a theory is using some material to expound itself, to delineate itself, how true will the application be on another material? Because you're actually silencing the voices that come directly from the material. The logic that informs that material is not the logic that is used in building a theory. So how true would that be? I mean, after all, our journey as researchers is to come closer to the truth, to come closer to the material, to hear those voices that emanate from the material itself, rather than muffle them with another set of voices that then hearing goes out of track. And I think that needs certain thought. The other thing is about tools of thinking. I kept mishearing Mrinali's stage 5 as stage fright. And in my head, I am thinking this is a stage fright. This is a stage fright where she's going through the stage fright where what do? You can see more clearly now. But then you have to, as Amrita's pointed out, jump, take a position, in an aware manner. That is the difference now. You will still use biases all your life. You have to survive as a human being. But you're more aware. And you're aware of the harm it causes. You're aware of the benefits. You're aware of... So there has to be some sort of ethical discipline that comes into play once you're aware of the biases. That's very important to know as a human being, that you're exercising, you're practicing ethical discipline in a very conscious way, and that we need to take. So tools of thinking is, how do you go back to tools of thinking is something I was puzzled by Mrinali's comment that she reads something and she goes back to tools of thinking. Tools are supposed to help you carve out something. You don't go back to the hammer and say, why did I use a hammer to kill an ant? Because that hammer is to hit a nail, not kill an ant. You need a different, if you want to kill an ant, I hope one doesn't, bad, aggressive, violent metaphor. But if you want to, do that, then you need a different tool. So tools are not something you should be going back to. Tools are something you internalize, and you automatically lift the hammer when you see the nail. You don't think, okay, shall I push it with my hand, but I will injure my hand. You don't do that because it's a matter. It's again that journey that that journey that happens and begins, and I think talking to one of my colleagues, and there are some aspects of learning that you stumble upon very late in life, which I have also now reading, and I think I wish I had known this like 30 years ago. I wish I had known, and he said that no, you have to know when you know it, and it will help you in your next life. So this is a preparation. Everything is a preparation. And he said it with such an ease, as if saying you believe in next. So so those are the conflicts. So you go with the flow. Yeah, okay. I mean, so that's my positioning. Then I'm not embarrassed about engaging with the idea of next life, because the person who's telling me does. And then so that doesn't make his argument flawed, but that's the perspective one needs to also take, even if you don't agree with it. So you need to kind of consider that some people do, and so it's very, very fascinating, enriching, and a rewarding journey of PhD is. And so any research, not just so one feels blessed that one has embarked on that journey. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Vibhuti. It's always raising the bar. And Mrinali, yeah. Sorry, I mean, I think we are way past 10 now, and I think people have things to do. But Ajit, I just wanted to ask very quickly. I don't know if he's here.
Yeah, I'm here. I've been listening.
Yeah. Any questions? Sorry, I'm just asking the guides. So
No questions. I was just pleasantly listening to the discussions and the kind of ideation and discourses that it has generated. I got a little late, so as I ended, I was seeing the biases, and then I was trying to understand. Are we looking at bias or not? So 2-3 points I wanted to, kind of mention here when happened to have a chance to work with Mrinali and Professor Vibhuti says they want this PhD. In my view, this is perfectly timed intellectual journey that Mrinali is taking, because there is so much to understand and so many new ideas have to happen in terms of the built environment and its forms and the dynamics of built environment in Indian context now, because there is a lot of investment, not just about the financial investment, but also intellectual investment and people moving around. It's our cities and the places that we are all going to live in future, or next generation is all going to get configured and reconfigured in the next 10-20 years. So it's a perfectly timed work. That's what from the very beginning I thought, and I do see Mrinali has got the right kind of vigor and excitement about it, which is growing, which is my observation. I mean, from the time that I've been interacting with her in the last 6-8 months, I'm seeing much more purposeful, much more deeper involvement of her into the PhD. That is very, very exciting for someone who has an opportunity to grow along. So I'm seeing this as a great opportunity. And in terms of her kind of looking at the different ideas as well as the philosophical aspects. So some of these discussions I have been also part of, and so I was just happy to see how she's kind of bringing that into her specific context and how she's trying to understand the bias, and also is there a way to outgrow the bias or move into newer biases. Maybe you will outgrow certain bias, but probably as Vibhuti ma'am was also mentioning, that you will have, every one of us will have bias. So maybe moving from smaller to bigger, or moving from things which are preventing your growth to something which is enabling your growth. So maybe the biases, the pattern and the types of biases are getting changed, but it's quite interesting to see. And I'm very kind of excited to see the purposefulness and the more deeper involvement she is making here. So thank you, Manali, and hope to see more richer discourses. And thanks for the proposition team also. I think it's a great forum now.
Thank you so much, Ajit. Yes, Mrinali, thanks a lot for this presentation, this topic. I think it's, academic journeys and personal journeys sort of converge in your topic. It's very interesting, and I think a lot of people have sort of hinted towards that it's, moving forward, moving ahead, what Ajit just said. And yeah, thank you, Ajit, for acknowledgement of the proposition team, who, of course, Sobhya, Sachin, Jayanti, Vibhuti, all of you, Ajit, Prab, etc., all working and giving their inputs behind the scenes. Thank you so much. And we streamed live today for the first time. So, yay, milestone. All right. Thank you. See you in
Thank
2
you,
weeks.
Radha. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sobhya.